When I was 21, it was a bad Beatles year. It was a bad Beatles year for Beatles releases that stunk up the joint. There really was no point. Beatles albums that were no fun. When I was 21. Sorry, folks. I hope you'll indulge me. And welcome, cellar dwellers, to the Matthew Street channel. I am your host, Matthew Street, and I really appreciate you being here live from the cavern in my parents' basement. And folks, I had to do that because 1982, wow, can you believe it was 40 years ago? Yes, a bad Beatles year, in my opinion. Okay, some may differ with me, but in my opinion, it kind of was. When you see the outpouring of wonderful Beatles releases we've received in the last 40 years. Think about it, folks. As recently as getting the Get Back documentary and the Let It Be Deluxe Edition being the most recent two, and all the cool solo stuff we've gotten. I'm not even going to try to list them all. Think about it. In 1982, wow, we got a couple of dogs, didn't we? A couple of stinkers, in my opinion. I never really liked the two Beatles releases that came out 40 years ago in 1982. They just both seem to be very done on the cheap, in my opinion. The graphics were poor, the design was poor, of the covers anyway, and in the case of one of them, they really tried to cram too much material onto one vinyl album. It just was outrageous. And I have not listened to them in forever. I just have not. They're in my collection. As a collector, you kind of have to have these, but other than that, I don't listen to them. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I remember, especially on the one that has all that music crammed too much onto one release, I don't remember them sounding good at all. As a matter of fact, I thought they sounded kind of lousy. And I am speaking about the two releases from 1982, the Beatles' 20 Greatest Hits and the Beatles' Real Music. This is what 40 years ago, folks, 1982. Yes, the year I turned 21 years old. And folks, I'm going to start with the newest one first because this one came out October of 1982. And Real Music, as you know, came out a bit earlier. It was March of 1982. But I have a little more to say about this one. So I'm going to speak about this one first. Folks, not a big fan of this album. And obviously, as time has shown, many years later when the one album came out, this is totally non-essential with the one album being out there. But as a collector, I guess if you want to try to collect some of the old artifact releases, you kind of have to have this. Now, as I said, it came out October 11th, 1982. It only made number 50 on the United States Top 200 charts in Billboard. But funnily enough, it went 2 times platinum. So it sold at least 2 million copies. Now, I don't really care for this album, folks. I mean, the design is horrible. The design is so plain and kind of gross, in my opinion. I mean, you had art director Roy Kohara. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it was Roy Kohara. And I believe Roy was the one who did earlier Beatles releases, the art direction of those, like Rock and Roll Music and whatnot. Correct me if I'm wrong. But if it was Roy, he didn't do a great job on Rock and Roll Music. And I don't think he did such a great job on this one. So I just think it's bad. It's just boring as heck. You've got this one image of the, well, I shouldn't say one image. They used multiple pictures of the Beatles and made a collage with these pictures, and then they manipulated these images to resemble animation or like artwork, and they used it inside the logo of the Beatles on the front cover. And to show you that image that had been manipulated, here it is. So it's like actual images of the Beatles, but then manipulated, as I said, and transferred to look like some type of animation or animated artwork or something. But it's the same image on this side, the same image on this side of the inner sleeve. And I'm sorry, I just find it to be very bland, very boring, not a lot of thought put into this. And it's just the same thing. Same thing here, same thing in the logo. It's just boring, 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 okay? Now, the album itself is on the purple capital label, very plainish purple capital label. And folks, you've got to see this. Look at the grooves and the song separation, how it's way, way too crammed in. Here's the label, but can you see the grooves on this thing? All right, there you go. Look at that. Look at the amount of songs. Some of them are so pencil thin, you can barely recognize that it could be a song there. There you go. Look at that. Look at that. Unbelievable. Now, the other side's a little better. There's a few less songs. And let's see how this goes. But look at this thing. Look at that. You can tell where Hey Jude is, even though it's been chopped up to 5 minutes. But I just think that's a travesty to try to jam that much material onto one final album. Is just outrageous. And as I said, I have not listened to it in long time, but I don't remember it sounding that great at all. So that's the first one that came out in 1982. All right, let's move on to number 2. So that's the Beatles' Real Music. Now, this is the real stinker, in my opinion. They're both stinkers, in my opinion. But this one really has always rubbed me the wrong way. There are a couple of good things about it, though, and I will tell you about that. Now, this is film-featured music. All the films the Beatles did, Hard Day's Night, Help, Yellow Submarine, Magical Mystery Tour, Let It Be. They took songs from all their films and put it on a featured album. Again, March 22nd, 1982, this came out. The one sad note about this album, this is the first Beatles release that came out post John Lennon's passing. So that's kind of a sad thing in and of itself, that this was the first one that came out after John died, and that's just a horrible memory. Now, the illustrations were done by a David McMacken. I'm not here to put David down or make fun of him or anything like that, but folks, I don't like this at all. I just think the artwork is horrible. The graphics, the way it was put together is horrible. There's the back. And it's just not something I like. Although a couple of good things, you do get a unique stereo mix of I Am the Walrus on here, A Hard Day's Night and Ticket to Ride are in true stereo. And I think there was a original harmonica mess up or something on I Should Have Known Better, and it supposedly is fixed here. So that's maybe a good thing, maybe not a good thing. I don't know. Now, this is, funnily enough, it made number 19 on the U.S. Top 200 Billboard charts. But even though it number-wise, it didn't get as high as Beatles' 20 Greatest Hits, I mean, it made higher. It made number 19, where Beatles' 20 Greatest Hits made 50. That album went double platinum. This only went gold. So go figure. I don't know how all that works. But anyway, can't stand the artwork on this thing. Now, I will say this. The inner sleeve, here's some good points. The inner sleeve is okay. It has some nice images of each of the Beatles on like what looks like a piece of celluloid, and each of the Beatles are represented on that piece of celluloid. See them? And on the back is nice because it's called the Beatles Collection, and you get to see all their releases, albeit it's the U.S. releases, but there you go, okay? So the inner sleeve isn't too bad. I kind of like that, and I will say you do get a souvenir program, the Beatles souvenir program, which is very nice. On the back has some of the playbills for the different movies, which is nice, okay? And the pictures inside the book are very nice. There's a nice little essay about each of the Beatles films with some nice images where it gives you a brief synopsis of each film. Very nice. Nice pictures. So I'm trying to give them some credit for this. Magical Mystery Tour. You know, not a very thick book, but nice nonetheless. Nice to have it. Nice touch. Yellow Submarine. And finally, Let It Be. So, nice touch that they give us a little booklet with it, that they gave us some nice images of the Beatles on the inner sleeve. I won't take it out, but you get a nice custom label where on 20 Greatest Hits you did not get a custom label, but on this one you get the custom label, which looks like a reel of film. Very nice. Very, very nice touch indeed, I will say for that. Okay, now, a couple of things I don't get about this that really rubbed me the wrong way. They did it on the cover. They have illustrations of different eras of the Beatles from the different film eras. So you got the Help Beatles standing over here outside the theater. You got the Hard Day's Night Beatles getting ready to go in. You got the Magical Mystery Tour Beatles just jumping out of their car to go into the movie. The Yellow Submarine guys are waiting in line. The Let It Be guys are last in line. They're waiting over here to get into the film, you know. And you got this, it's just kind of silly in my era. And on the cover of the booklet, now they've all arrived inside the movie theater. They're all in there. There's all the Beatles, all inside, and they're socializing in the lobby. They're eating some popcorn. They're having some soda, if you look closely. And if you look really close, Paul McCartney is holding a Hershey bar. Maybe Hershey didn't give enough money to get full exposure in advertising, so if you look really close, so you can obviously see an H and an E on the candy bar in Paul's hand. You'll have to look for that. But they're all having a good time, and they're partying in the lobby. They got their snacks, and they're ready to go in and have a good time. But a couple of questions I have is, so you got all the Beatles in there from the different eras and movies, but you got this one generic guy behind the counter. Why is there some generic character behind the concessions counter selling the Beatles their snacks? Shouldn't it be one of the Beatles themselves? Or maybe it could be like Brian Epstein. Or why didn't they make it George Martin? Or they could have had it one of the characters from one of the films. They could have had Jeremy Hillary Boob back there selling the candy and the popcorn or something like that. You know, why not that? And the same thing on the cover. They're all arriving to the theater, and you got this one little generic, looks like a woman behind the counter here at the ticket stand selling the tickets. Come on. You know, why not have like, you could have Paul's grandfather behind the counter there, or maybe a Clang from Help, or Norman Shake, or Captain Fred from Yellow Submarine. Why not put them behind? Why? Come on, Mr. McCracken. McMacken, whatever your name is, you know, show a little imagination. I mean, the illustrations aren't that great on this thing. You know, if you're going to have a generic character there, you know, you make it kind of like interesting, you know, make it kind of cool or something. Put some Beatles secret clues in these pictures, you know, make it really like you had an imagination for it. I don't know. I just thought, you know, you got all these different Beatles there on the cover and on the booklet. You know, make it a little fun, make it interesting. Let's see, you know, I want to see Clang and the you know, Sea of Monsters guy or something. I don't know. I'm just being silly, folks. But anyway, I just wanted to acknowledge that it's been 40 years. Wow. I mean, 40 years ago. It just blows my mind when I realized that these two stinkers came out 40 years ago. And here we are, wow, 2022. And as I said in my little silly song in the beginning, this is the year I turned 21 years old. Wow. I'm 60 now, I'll be 61 later this year. And it's just like amazing to me. Maybe that's, you know, when you get old, that's what you think about this stuff. I don't know, but I do. You know, it's nice that we got something. I'll say that. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Capital, EMI, whatever. Okay, we did get something from them all those 40 years ago, so I guess I should be grateful for that. But if little I had to know, I had to wait, you know, 30, 20, 30, 40 years to get some really cool Beatles stuff. I don't know if I could have taken it. I waiting that long. But at the time, you know, we didn't know what the future held. We just were happy to get something, I guess. But they're kind of non-essential. Like I said in the beginning, non-essential unless you're really, really into the collecting the Beatles, especially you younger, new collectors out there. If you're really into it, yeah, then try to pick these up, at least for the fun of having them in your collection. But in my opinion, folks, 1982, it was a bad Beatles year for Beatles releases that really went nowhere. Boom, 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 boom. Excuse my fake mic here. Okay, folks, thank you. That's it. 15 minutes. I'm out of here. 40 years ago, 1982. Let me hear your thoughts on these releases. Love you all. Peace and love from the basement, my parents' basement, in the cavern. Bye-bye.